With that, let's get started. Our president, Don Fitzgerald, is unavailable today, so I'll be sitting in for him. This is a work session to go over the budget. I believe it's our fourth work session, and pretty soon we're going to be voting on this. So anyway, I'll pass this to Dr. Hanlon.
Good morning.
Do we need a motion to go into work session?
Is there a motion, or I thought it was, is that right? Okay, do I hear a motion to go into
not
work
here,
session?
but I believe you need a motion to go into work session to be
Sounds
official.
All right,
I make a motion we move into work session.
second. Okay, those in favor of going into a work session?
Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
I'm going to immediately turn it over to our very competent comptroller, Mr. Ford, who's going to walk you through a balanced budget.
Good morning. I guess I am on. So, it truly is a beautiful morning on Delmarva, and I'm thankful that we are able to meet here. And I do ask that we do pray for Mr. Fitzgerald, who I know is going through some difficult times right now. So, with that said, I do want to move on to looking at the budget submission that you have before you, and give the board an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. The superintendent and staff have worked over the past week to present to the board the superintendent's recommendation for a balanced budget. And I know she has some things she wants to review with you relative to that this morning. But with that said, I'd like to start with the very first page of the handout that I placed on your desk this morning, which is a copy of what was forwarded to you in the packet by Ms. Vestal. And the first page of that packet is what we refer to as our reconciliation of revenues and expenditures, to reflect the fact that we do have a balanced budget where revenues, new revenues for the new fiscal year 18 equal the projected expenditures. And we'll go through those in detail. Also, I would point on this page that there are several one-time requests that the superintendent is recommending be submitted to the county executive. And those one-time requests are broken down into two areas: one, technology, and the other, capital needs. And we'll go over those in detail in a few minutes in those exhibits. And then finally, as the board has always requested us to do, and we have continued to provide, the total listing of all of those requests that are not coming forward in terms of the superintendent's and staff's recommendation, what we refer to as the unfunded requests. And as you can see, they total almost $8 million. So what that represents is the requests that were made from all of the principals, the budget managers, and supervisors. They totaled over $7.8 million that have not made it to the final cut list, per se. Okay, with that said, let's move into the first exhibit. Exhibit A is our revenue page. And the only change from the previous week in this revenue page is the addition of the aging schools revenue that we talked about, potentially getting this 106,627. Noticed I highlighted the wrong box. I highlighted the 300,000. It should be the 106. That's the change from last time, 106,627. So I apologize for that. So the total new revenue for FY18, based upon MOE and based upon the MSDE data submitted January the 20th, 2017, $6,052,970. That's a 3.28% increase. That's in comparison to a 5.18% increase last year in state aid. So just to give you an idea in terms of percentage.
Mr. Ford, how do we decide where we're going to use that aging school funding? I know last year we didn't get it, and this year we do have it. So how's it decided where to use it?
Mrs. Ashby puts together a list of projects that meet the criteria that is established by the Interagency Committee for Public School Construction. She submits those requests to the IAC, and they will approve or disapprove depending upon the criteria that is established by that organization.
That list isn't included in here. Is it just the amount?
That list at this moment, I don't know if it's complete or not.
We've got plenty of projects to choose from in the capital outlay.
Will we be able to see a copy of those soon?
Sure, we can put a proposal together.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on Exhibit A? All right, Exhibit B is their cost of doing business. And we have highlighted several lines that did change since the prior review with the board. Also, note line 2 has now been reduced from the employees' health insurance premium increase of 6%. The latest from the consultant is 4.75%. And the superintendent is recommending the utilization of $810,000 from the rate stabilization reserve for a premium reduction plan, so that the net impact on employees and retirees would be a 2.25% increase over the current year, for a total cost to the board of $900,000. So you may remember last time that amount was $1.6 million as a result of the reduction from 6% to 4.75%, and then the recommendation of the superintendent to utilize about $810,000 of our rate stabilization reserve. That'll bring the request down to $900,000 in new money.
And Bruce, just a note for board members who may not have the history. On years when we have not had that increase, employees have had a month grace period where they did not have to pay. So it works both ways, although this year it looks like we're looking at a 2.25 increase. There have been years where there's been where there was not usage and our costs were down, that was transferred to employees in terms of giving a month without premium.
Well, actually, that's what we're recommending, because otherwise they would be paying an additional 4.75%.
Okay.
But we're recommending only 2.25% by
Right.
giving a premium reduction in that first pay by about a half.
Okay.
So they'll, instead of paying a full month, they'll be paying a half a month.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll pass that on to our employees and retarees.
Just wanted to make sure other
Yes.
board members knew. Can we talk a bit about line 1? And I don't want to go into any detail because we're in a work session here, but line 1 can be subject to change at this point based upon information we've received. Is that not correct?
Yes, this is totally up to the board's decision.
Okay, so as we look at line 1, it is a line that is subject to change.
Yes, this is the recommendation put forth by the superintendent.
I understand, and I'm good with that this morning, but unlike some other lines, that one is probably looked at as one that can possibly change.
I would like to point out that that we're still in negotiations, and I made a mistake last year where I started throwing percentages around, and I shouldn't have in a work session. So just so our new board member there.
That's why I said we would not go into detail.
Right, I
but
appreciate that,
I
Mr.
thought we
Willey.
need to point
Right.
that out.
Okay, thank you.
One of the new lines that were added. I want to point that out. Line 27, the fiber communication from Pittsville to Willards. Mrs. Ashby has informed the superintendent that we are concerned about the current arrangement for providing service, internet service, to the Willards area, which is via towers at this moment in time, and is recommending that we provide fiber cable to Willards from the Pittsville site where we do currently have fiber run at a cost of about $95,000. Ms. Ashby, I don't know if you'd like to speak to that at all. I know that was an important item for you.
We had met with Dr. Townsend to discuss, and basically the radio tower equipment is what's failing. We had a close call approximately 3 or 4 weeks ago. We had one spare left. There's some FCC licensing associated with the radio equipment. That could cost upwards to $60,000 to $65,000 should we have to replace a piece of equipment. However, running fiber costs approximately $95,000, so we felt it prudent to go ahead and commit to the fiber piece. A portion of this could be offset by E-rate. So Mr. Miller is working on those applications as we speak, and the project is out. So it's just a matter of timing. Willards now has, I believe it's 3rd grade there, and that's a testing site. So should we lose our internet capabilities, that would impact their instructional delivery.
So we will be spending $95,000 to save possibly twice that much if we had failure. You said it was 60. That
could be 60 to 65,000. Plus, you have to wait several weeks, up to 6 to 8 weeks, for licensing to go through.
So 2 failures would more than exceed this amount and prevent us from being without service.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about item 4 or line 4? Just so does that mean we're not matching the employees?
That's correct.
We used to,
we
stopped doing it. This is to ask it be done again.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there was a request of about $420-some thousand there, and again, in order to balance the budget, that was one of the items that was reduced.
Line 13 is not required, but it's something we need to do in terms of health and safety for students. Is that not correct? At some point, it may be required with the issue, but it's not.
It is required.
It is now. So that was my question. It is now a requirement. So it's not a wonder whether we do it or not. It's required to be done, correct? Okay, that's, I think, an important point. Not something we're doing to try to get ahead of the curve. The curve is already here. We've got to do it.
Any other questions on Exhibit B? So you can see the total of the cost of doing business that's put forth to the board is a little over $4 million, $4,003,975. Okay. Exhibit C is the recommendation for new requests from the superintendent. They are listed for you by state category. Notice that the request column is followed by the cost reduction column. And remember from previous discussions that the cost reduction column represents funds that are available within the current year's budget that are being reduced or realigned in order to be able to fund the particular request that is before the board. So, for example, in line 1, bring that up. There's a total request of $124,546. That's the sum of the 105,391 and the fixed of 19,155, a total of 124,546. There are line items within the current budget that are being reduced in the amount of 124,546 in order to be able to fund that new request. I just want to make sure the board.
That's for 1 year.
That's for that. That's just
So when you take on an
18.
FTE, you're taking it on for an additional year potentially.
That's correct.
We don't know what we'll have for
That's
a year
correct.
from now. Okay.
That's
So that's just FY
Yep.
17.
Yep.
18.
18. That's correct. Okay, any questions in the category of admin?
Both of those together represent 3 teachers. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
In line 2, there are no guarantees, but that's been presented to us as a position that will save us money in the future based upon reducing our insurance costs for employees injured or whatever. We have no guarantees there either, but it is felt that that position would indeed help reduce workman comp claims. Is that not a fair statement?
That is correct.
I think in both of those cases, I would just remind you that staff, including myself, feel so strongly about the importance of those positions that we have looked within our budgets to where we are willing to reduce, to make reductions in order to make those a priority.
And I'm not unappreciative of that. I just feel we need to look at this in light of instructional needs as well.
Okay, hearing no more questions on admin, we move to school management and support. Again, the requests there are being funded through cost reductions. There will be no net increase in school management and support next year through new requests. Okay, hearing no questions on school management support, let's move to instruction. Again, these line numbers represent the line numbers from the previous submissions so that the board could see exactly what was brought forward by the superintendent and what was not. That way you would have a clear understanding of from where we were to where the recommendation is today.
I guess where I struggle with some of this is when you look at the last week, we had 6.5 bodies or FTEs for reading intervention. We all heard about how much we need that. So if you're a taxpayer, you wouldn't see that we cut that, but you look that we get 3 versus adding 2 positions at central office. Not that I'm opposed to that. I'm just looking at it as a taxpayer would look at it, or a parent. You know, what do we need the most?
And those were the basis of my comments a minute ago, because this has been reduced, and you will also note that these positions will serve both secondary and elementary. So we're looking at in both lines 13 and 14, those positions serve elementary and secondaries.
Correct.
I don't know I don't have the answer, just the questions. But that's what I struggle with personally when I look at that. Just, you know, maybe other folks have thoughts. Maybe I'm off base. I don't know.
Can I just comment on that quickly?
Sure.
I appreciate that, having been on both sides of the fence, instruction and administrative services. If you look in here, though, we've added 15 positions on the instruction side, if you look at that total, and we're only requesting to add 2 positions. I can speak, and I know Dr. Hanlon has spoken to the communications person, but for the risk management, I don't think you were here, but we did a presentation on our liability on the risk management, and we're the highest in the entire state, highest county. And so we really do feel strongly that to be able to continue to serve instruction, we need to be able to reduce our expenses on the administrative services side. So we actually see that investment as a reduction because eventually over this next year, we anticipate that position being able to reduce our workers' comp claims significantly. And of course, at the end of the year, we'll be able to measure that if it really happened. But we do think it's important because we do see it, although we're spending money as a cost-saving measure over the next year.
Kathy, I would just say this discussion is best held right here in preparation for the discussion you will have in a wider venue and with the county council. So because questions are being raised don't mean people are sitting here in opposition of the request.
Yep.
But the questions we're asking, as I think Jean just pointed out, are questions that we hear from the public and you will hear from the public. So we need to be ready to address why this is looked upon as a critical need administratively, just as it's much easier to sell the need instructionally, particularly in schools where we've got the growing enrollment, there's overcrowdedness, teachers need assistance in whatever.
Right. And this is a great place to practice that answer.
It is.
That was my point.
And
Here's another practice question.
Okay.
Good lead-in. How are other school systems handling this risk management?
Well, actually, what has happened 2 years ago, wasn't it, Bruce? We started our risk management committee, and to be honest, we've become a model for several of the other counties where they just I don't know why ours are so much higher. I think that probably they maybe have staff that are able to go out and investigate, and we don't, and that's why we're asking for this position. But we did institute a risk management committee, and we have been able over the past year. We have seen some reduction in the claims of our risk management just by some of the things that we've put in place. We've been able to secure 2 different grants through that committee, and we have purchased, we had several cuts in our food services division, and so we purchased special can openers that would prevent those cuts. We also purchased mats, right, Vince? Mats for back injuries. What else did we purchase? Do you remember? Oh, CPI. We got more training. People trained to be able to do CPI training within our district.
We also purchased step ladders.
Step ladders. That's right.
The can openers were actually for repetitive motion for shoulder injuries. We were seeing a lot of repetitive motion injuries. I would just say that spending the whatever is budgeted for a risk management position, I'm sorry I walked away from my paper, but $63,000 to reduce a $1.5 million deficit that has grown 3 times over the past 4 years is money well spent. You're spending to save money, and if we can cut that back down to where it was pre-2012, which would be about half that amount, then you're talking about 50 teachers that you can put back into the classroom. So that's really the concept behind save money here to move money there.
It's a great concept, but the point is there are no guarantees that this person can do that. If indeed they do, the scenario you just described would make all of us rejoice. The other side of that picture is if this person does not, because of being on board, we don't see significant change in that, then at some point we'd have to go back and reevaluate whether the position was doing what we hoped it would do. Is that not a fair assessment of
Well, certainly we would want to go back and reevaluate if it was being cost effective. It's sometimes hard to, and it takes time to see the results. But if we don't try, then we won't know.
And I'm completely agree with that.
Okay.
Would you be able
Vince,
to?
go ahead.
Would you be able to present a breakdown of the what is happening during the year, like in the you mentioned about repetitive motion with the can openers? Would you be able to present something to the Sade County Council that would say, this is what happened during the year, this is what we did to improve it, and, go on from there.
Sure.
Lines of
We could
workman's
certainly do
comp
that.
claims, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there you go,
And I
Ryan.
think another part of that too, Kathy, you just touched on it briefly, is the fact that with this person, you have an opportunity to investigate more claims,
Mhm.
which could also be a reduction.
Which we have had some instances where people have made false claims.
Right.
Yes.
So Vince, what is the expected savings
Well,
in
There
the
was-
whole dollar amount?
to answer Mr. Palmer's question, he had asked what other counties are doing. This risk management position was suggested by our insurance company, MABE, several years ago, because they had seen, and it was a C county. It was either Caroline or Charles or one of the C counties. I can't remember which
I think
one.
it's Charles.
They had implemented a risk management position, and they saw a reduction where their costs were cut by almost 25% in just the first 2 years. So if we can do that, you're talking about $250,000.
So that sounds like money well spent.
It will be critical to hire correctly.
Right.
Before we leave that, the items under administration, I just would point out to you that since the last work session, as I believe I told you, we spent hours between executive leadership team, which is everyone that you see in the room, and senior leaders, which is Mr. Ford and the assistant superintendents, on cutting this budget to what we believed were the most important priorities. And in that executive leadership team, I asked the group if I were willing to give up the director of communications. And I got a lot of shaking of the heads that no. In fact, Dr. Handy, if you would speak to that, because this is an issue that is the importance of this position versus instruction specifically, and I know you felt strongly about that, so if you would just speak to that for a minute, because this is your area.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hanlon. Yes, I did speak very, very strongly for, of course, support for Director of Communications and Community Outreach. This has been a position that I wanted to see for many, many years, many years. I feel that here in Wicomico County, we have an outstanding school system. Our teachers and our administrators and our central office staff do amazing work every day. However, that information does not get out there into the community. It is very important to any community to be seen as a premier and a place where people want to come and live and work. Number one is the school system. We have many things going on fabulously. However, if our teachers and administrators are working so hard and doing so many things, but you never hear about them, and we've tried, but if you never hear about them, then it's for naught in terms of what the public and other, of course, communities think of our school system. So, absolutely, I definitely am in support of this position, and I have been in support of having this position for a number of years.
You know, and just let me say, I appreciate your comments, Dr. Handy, but you said, and we've tried. And the truth of the matter is, we have tried.
Mm-hmm.
Some schools, school-based administration, do a much better job of promoting what's happening at their schools than others.
That's true.
But I also know that articles have been written by the school and by central office personnel in charge of this area and never published. So maybe this new person is going to open doors with the news media that we've not been able to open, but it's not because information's not been sent
Right.
about school activities
That's correct.
and teacher performances that have been outstanding and what they've done with students, we've just not been able to get it either on the TV spot
That's right.
or in the local newspaper. We have one in town now that has been doing more for us, thank goodness. But, there have been efforts
Yes,
to do this.
absolutely there have
And
been.
I don't want that to
Yes.
seem that we've been
Oh, no. I wasn't
sitting on
saying
our
that we
hands
didn't.
doing nothing with
Right.
this.
Because we have. I agree with you 100%. But a person dedicated to the entire, of course, county school system to be able to be the voice for us and be the voice for us from all of our communities, because we do have a broad spectrum of diverse communities. And for that person to truly understand our community and the diversity and the differences in the schools really speaks volumes. And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of absolutely. Some of our schools, some of our leaders in the schools do an awesome job. But I would love to see it more consistent across the board.
And I would just say that those media outlets, written and our TV stations, have been really great about, I just recently met with the Daily Times about getting the good word out. But that's just a slice of this. That is just, if you go back and look at the job description. And if you compare this, as I understand, and thank you for the practice, because I know that the question will come up. But I want to speak specifically to the reading intervention teachers. I believe wholeheartedly in that position. But I want to also point out to you that that is putting a Band-Aid on the issues that we have with children being able to read in our school system. We're going to bring a presentation to you in a month or so on our kindergarten readiness assessment data. Students are coming, and I'm not placing the blame outside the school system because we definitely are a part of this, but students are coming into our school system not ready to learn. This is a community issue that we need to really address as a community. And it's before they reach kindergarten. We need to do so much more early on with our students that, yes, we do need additional positions to help with those reading interventions later, but there's so much more to that issue than just that position once they reach us.
Dr. Hanlon, I'm all for that person right there, because let me tell you, if you don't toot your own horn, ain't nobody going to do it for you. So we need to get out there and we need to toot loud and clear and continuously so that people know. I still have some questions about this risk management. And I'll come at this from maybe Liesel's side. You're always getting people come into the physical plant, and they have programs where they're going to reduce your cost of power consumption for the year by X percentage by helping you, by showing you what to do and helping you with the programs. Does maybe have anything out there that says that these companies will come in to assist you with your comprehensive, your claims and all, to assist you, maybe work at a percentage or something, in this manner, to lower the cost that we're paying out. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
They do have safe schools programs. We subscribe to that, where we do things like give specialized areas training on the computer, like on slips, trips, and falls, or on what are some other examples of our safe schools? There's like 200 courses, and so we choose specific courses. Like maybe for our special ed assistants, they take a specific course. Food service people, our facilities people take those courses online. But we don't really have anybody in house who goes out and has that face-to-face conversation with people who have had workers' comp claims, or the repeated. We have, for example, one year or over the course of 3 years, I believe it was, we had one employee who had 9 workers' comp claims. We had nobody to go out really and spend the time that was required to investigate those. And honestly, it sends a message to others. If there are false claims, it sends to others that a message that we're going to be investigating the claims and putting things in place that are going to help reduce those claims in the future. But as far as what you're asking, does MABE have anything in place where they have consultants? I'm not aware of that.
If there was ever an opportunity for a business, I would highly recommend some entrepreneurs get onto this, because apparently we're not the only ones having problems with it. I'm sure there's some investigative services who would provide that service.
Mr. Palmer, actually, MABE does do a review at our request. They will come out annually, and they'll look at our facilities, because I think you were initially asking Liesl because of the facility side of the house. I think, is that what I understood where you were?
I was just using that as an example of somebody who would come in, because I see them all the time in the physical plant, how they're going to do things better, or how they will even fill out the paperwork for me and turn it in. And I don't have to do very much anything other than provide basic information.
Right. MABE does have risk managers that come around annually, and they'll review any number of schools. Though last year, I believe, and this is Bob's area, we had 6 of our schools looked at. And they'll go through and look for risk areas where we can show improvements. But the reality for MABE as our insurer is that there are 19 LEAs that are a member of MABE. And so they can't be at every site in every county all year long. So they come out, they do a review, and then it's our job to make sure that we mitigate those risks that they've pointed out to us. But as far as investigations, they will not come out and investigate individual claims. That really is on the LEA to do that, and we just don't have the manpower currently.
And we take those recommendations really seriously. In fact, we review them in our risk management committee to see what progress we've made on the recommendations.
And what we've done currently is with our risk management committee is we review every claim from a distance. I mean, it's on paper, and we'll look at it and say, what can we fix? And then if need be, we'll go out to the school and say, we need to change this, change that. All of our ideas in the last 2 years at least for the grant has come from the risk management committee, where we said, okay, here's our highest risk. I think back to the CPI training that we had provided for Bonnie's department. That was done because the largest claims that particular year came from our instructional assistants in special ed who were being struck by students and who had been dealing with tough students, and they had some significant injuries. So we thought, well, if we can get people trained better on CPI techniques and reducing those claims, and we think we've seen that work. Those claims have not been as high this year, and we hope to continue to see that trend downward.
Yeah. It's kind of a pay now or pay later. You know, if we can make this investment now to reduce the cost later, then I think it's important to do that. But if not, our claims, you know, the lack of training and the lack of investigation will continue, and because we don't have the staff to do it. And so I would anticipate that our claims won't come down other than what we've been able to put in place through our risk management committee.
Thank you.
Well, I'm like Gene. I am concerned about the reading intervention teachers going from 6.5 to 3. But we were presented at this. The board was presented was given a presentation that showed the impact reading intervention had on some elementary schools, or a elementary school, and it was dramatic. And I'm just concerned that you know, that even though there are root causes, and this is a Band-Aid, still, if the Band-Aid helps us get better outcomes, I'm in favor of it. So.
Thank you so much for that comment, and I couldn't agree with you more. Keep in mind, however, that a child's first teacher is that classroom teacher, and our goal is to continue to provide the necessary professional development training in the areas, of course, of English language arts and reading, so that the first teacher, that classroom teacher, can be the one to teach that child the necessary, of course, skills that they need to be able to read. The reading intervention teacher is a support. They're the resource. And yes, I agree, we do need more. However, remember, the first teacher is that classroom teacher.
Donna's point is true for reading and math as well. It is a Band-Aid, but a necessary Band-Aid. We need to stop the bleeding. That's what Band-Aids do for those who are already there. But the real issue is we need to stop having to need that intervention because we've done a better job in terms of getting them ready for the next grade level. And there are a lot of factors that affect that we can't control, which Donna's pointed out. But, in the meantime, we've got to deal with what we have right now. And that's why the intervention is critical for students coming up next year and the year after.
And another point to that is when we talk about reading intervention and math intervention, so to speak, we have to go beyond the borders of the school system.
That's right.
And look at those other programs in the community. I'll use Head Start, for instance, and other pre-K type programs that could possibly help our students as they matriculate into the public school system. So that interaction with those agencies as well as those collaborative things we can do could possibly help reduce, I'll use the term again, possibly help reduce the kinds of things we're seeing.
And our summer programs that we heard about at our last meeting, I mean, those to me are critical pieces of what we do to help children during the summer and build on skills and help them remediate in some cases and extend in others. So those are critical pieces, and what other community agencies do in support of that. If we could just grab hands and work together during those months, that would be so powerful, I think.
Bruce, any other questions on the instruction section? We have 3 areas of instruction: the instructional salaries and wages. On the next page, instructional textbooks and supplies, and then other instructional costs, and that'll round out the area of instruction. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. On the next page, we start with special ed. Then follow with student personnel, student health, student transportation, and operation plan. And as you can see, in most of the cases, the department managers, budget managers, are submitting requests and also at the same time funding most of those requests through cost reductions within their own budgets.
This is probably a Bonnie question, Bruce, but line 81, the additional interpreters, we're requesting 2 of those. You have people trained and available to fill those positions if indeed they were funded, or are we going to have to search for that item?
As with any position such as this, we have to post for that, Mr. Willie. They are few and far between, and so we try to ensure that we have postings out there as often as possible so that we have a pool of candidates from which to select.
And this item would address IEP meetings where interpreters are needed, as well as this homeschool for the deaf returnees. Is that correct?
The only time that they would be available to do that, Mr. Willie, would be if, in fact, it was the student who is deaf's IEP meeting.
So this is for deaf students only?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is not for translation.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
So, Bonnie, what are we doing now to address this?
We have specific American Sign Language trained interpreters working one-on-one with the students who are profoundly deaf. And that ASL is their main communication
Right.
modality.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any others?
Okay, no other questions on that page?
I would like just to talk about item 108, Bruce, for a minute.
Inventory.
That's another body we need. Can an inventory technician position, I'm not sure what that entails.
Mr. Souza has made that request.
And it's set a realignment, but it's still calling for an additional person.
Actually, it's not an additional. We're taking one FTE away and reassigning it to fill another FTE position.
So this is not an additional FTE?
This is not an
It
additional.
appears that way in the budget.
Well, if you'll notice the cost reduction in the column FTE, it's a -1.
Oh, you minus the FTEs, not just a
Okay.
transfer. Okay.
That's correct.
So
All
this
right, I
this will
hope-
be covered year after year, basically.
That's
We're
correct,
just swapping
because
one for the other.
he's willing to give up a custodial FTE
Okay.
in order to fund this position.
I'd still
up.
like Mr. Sousa
Yes.
to tell the board exactly what this position will do and why he feels it's so vitally needed.
Currently, good morning. Currently, we have inventory all over the place. We have them in multiple locations, and we're trying to isolate everything to one location. We purchase many items in the course of a year, and I have one person that's in charge of the warehouse, but I only have two other people that move furniture, deliver specific items to include desks, floor wax, etc. And we have so much in one place, we really need one other person in order to meet all our needs and all our requests.
Well, in the past, when we moved furniture, we've hired a moving company to come in and do that for us.
Well, that is the truth. When we get into bigger items such as fire safes, fireproof file cabinets, etc. But it's that can get extremely costly, constantly going to the well to pay a contractor. A good example, Mr. Willie, was this past summer we actually used several in-house people and eliminated a lot of need to go to that well of a private contractor. And with one more, we can do a lot more.
Are you saying that this will save us money in the long run?
Sure, it'll give us better inventory control. Currently, I can't even give you the number of how many tens of thousands of items we have in our inventory system, including parts, pieces, and everything for all our HV. Mr. Ollinger
I took the
took
tour.
a tour of it. I mean,
It's a big warehouse.
it's huge.
So
And,
no question in your mind that this is a cost-saving request.
Oh, definitely, it wouldn't be there if I didn't think it would. Correct. Gives us better control of the inventory too.
So we're losing one custodian, I can't even talk this morning, custodian, and realigning it with this position. Am I correct?
Yes.
So what impact will that have on our custodial?
Actually, I believe it's an FTE out of the maintenance department. I'd have to double check that one.
If it comes from a school, I'd have some heartburn.
Right.
I will tell you that.
No, I don't believe it was. I believe it was from one of the extra FTEs. One of the FTEs I had in the maintenance department.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, no other questions on that page. We'll move to the last page of Exhibit C, where we have maintenance of plant, fixed charges, and finally category capital outlay. The total new requests for 19 FTE, $2,048,995.
Bruce, I'm sorry. I know I'm asking a lot of questions here,
please.
but I thought that's what we need to do
That's
at this
correct.
meeting. Line item 118, school sign replacement. Have we taken that on for each school? Because school signs were generally something I thought was funded through the school with donors or fundraising, and you help me if that's not been true in the past, but my history tells me that's kind of how we did that. And are we taking this on now as if the school bought the first sign, we're replacing the rest of them?
We've established a standard sign that's necessary at each of the schools. There's been lots of community comments about some of the signs at our schools where they don't really promote positive image of the school. And there are some schools whose PTA just can't afford to raise funds to do that. And so we feel like, I asked that this replacement, and actually we reduced it significantly from the original request. I asked that this replacement be put in the budget because if we have a minimum standard of what we want each of the signs to look like, then everybody's being treated fairly. There's not one school whose PTA can afford a sign that has digital and all the computerized, and then somebody else has, for example, Beaver Run recently had a sign that was just falling down, and there wasn't those funds available. So by making the playing field even and establishing a minimum standard of what we want the signs to look at. If a school wants to go above and beyond that, they certainly can. If the PTA wants to, and it's time for a sign replacement and they want to add so many $1,000s to that, then that's fine. But we have a minimum standard of what we want each of the signs to look like, because we think it's really important that the image of the school is certainly projected through many things, but the sign particularly.
I don't disagree with that. The biggest complaint that I hear about the signs is sometimes they are not, the information is not updated in a timely fashion. We will still have things that have already come and gone posted on the sign instead of what is coming forward. But I do believe we need some at least base level of consistency in terms of signs between schools. But I am concerned if we take away the incentive of PTAs or other groups of being able to do something in this area, just as they had done for playground equipment. I mean, these kind of fit in the same ballpark in some ways.
Well,
because
they
playground
can.
equipment, PTAs or other groups within the school community have helped with that, and sometimes even with the upgrades, the board has helped keep them in safe condition if that were necessary.
Well, and we do encourage schools if they want a bigger, better sign to participate, but I don't think it's their responsibility to be totally in charge of those signs. I think we have a responsibility to give a minimum standard.
And I don't disagree with
So
that.
that's kind of what this is replacing at that minimum, but appropriate standard. Then if they want to add on, they're certainly welcome to do so.
Because this is, to me at least, is a new item, I'm just bringing this up because questions can come from schools regarding this. Is the board now taking over the signage piece that we once were doing or responsible for? So we just want to make sure that it's clarified as to what this is doing.
Right, but the schools were never in charge of the maintenance of the signs. If they started to fall around and fall down and were in disrepair, then it was our responsibility. So we're just trying to make sure that we present an image at each of our schools at a very minimum standard.
Very good. Thank you.
And I know the county executive has commented about our signs. That he was
I just want to reiterate the importance of, and Kathy said it twice, I just want to say it a third time, image. Image is very important. The consistency of image. We keep talking about how, of course, important it is that our school grounds look wonderful, that the outside is well maintained, including the sign. And I can't agree more that, yes, we must do a better job with making sure the information on the sign is appropriate and current.
I have a question on 127. How much is going to Choices and how much is going to Parkside? And with whatever the amount that's going to Parkside, is this above and beyond the $18 million we're getting already?
Yeah, I believe Lisa has that information.
Okay, the line item that you're looking at is just additional new dollars on top of that particular budget line item account. Total for Choices is approximately $610,000, and the funding for Parkside is approximately $550,000.
Yeah, and what she's pointing out is the current line item, meaning the line item within the 17 budget, plus this new amount that's required, will equal the sum of those two amounts, if you follow what I'm saying. This is the new money she needs added to the existing 17 budget to fund those two amounts that she just said.
That, I think that would probably have to be elaborated on with the county council, because I know they're going to ask that question.
We've actually broken that down. If you may have been at the school building commission meeting, I'm not sure. We broke these pieces down in a explanation regarding funding for the Parkside project.
So to answer your question about the Parkside project, this is in addition to the monies that are being provided from the bond funds from the county and from the state. So this is in addition to those funds.
So that would be that list of alternatives that was presented?
Yes,
Okay.
portions are going to fund those proposed alternates.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the total new requests of $2,048,995? Okay, hearing none, if we could move to Exhibit D, which represents the superintendent's recommendation for one-time, non-recurring, not impacting maintenance of effort requests for technology to impact the classroom. These are requests that the board has seen before. We have narrowed it down a little bit and focused on basically three areas. The laptop carts, which the board heard clearly from several of our teachers about the benefit for the students in the classroom of the laptop carts. And then the section there toward the bottom on the interactive whiteboards.
Bruce, a question I think you're going to get on these two pages, Exhibit D and E, will be, are these in priority listing?
These are in I do know Exhibit E is in priority order. Exhibit D, I honestly, Bob, I can't remember, sir. Did we do that in priority order? No, we did not. Okay, we will make sure that is done, though.
Yeah. And actually, Bob and I are meeting tomorrow to put together a more formal technology plan that will support all of these technology requests. What our current inventory is, what our proposed inventory is, dividing out these requests by specialized. For example, if a high school English department wants laptop carts to be able to be equitable across the district, those sorts of things, and then generalized requests just to ensure that our students have access and opportunity to the technology. So we're working on and we should have it done very soon, a plan to actually explain these technology requests.
Well, and the reason I raised the question, Kathy, is I think in selling this, and I would be the one that shouts the loudest and jumps the highest if this were funded for us, because I feel so strongly about these one-time funding requests. But I do believe it's important that they're presented in the area of what do they impact. And as I look at these are instructionally related requests. So all of these help serve our instructional program, helping us do a better job instructionally. We've been able to sell one-time requests on that kind of approach. We did it in terms of school safety, and everything we were asking dealt with school safety, and you remember that got funded. We did it on technology when we were behind so many others in that area. That got funded, and certainly our needs for instruction are great. So I'm hoping that when we present this, we can make this an instructional package, so to speak, in terms of these are needs that have been pleaded for by our people in the classrooms, not just for testing purposes, although it helps that, but for the day-by-day instruction and the things that Dr. Hanlon talks about, and that's bringing innovative classroom lesson approaches that will grasp student attention and hold it. So I think we need to do a good job selling this on that kind of approach with our county council.
We couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Willie. Absolutely. Technology is an integral part of instruction and has been for a number of years and has become more increasingly so. It is for daily use, and we definitely need much more, of course, technology equipment, as you indicated, not just for testing, but for everyday, day-to-day instruction as a resource. I go back to, again, Visioning Day, and students were at Visioning Day, as well as, of course, community and business leaders. And committee after committee, especially the students, indicated how important it is to have access to the use of technology on a daily basis when they are doing their studies, their research, their projects. They must have access to it. And when we talk about being college and career ready, if our students are not astute in the areas of using technology and various software packages, then we are not doing them justice. They have to be able to use the technology when they go to college, the work world, or military. So this hopefully is something that the county council, the county executive will see as a priority, because we definitely do in the area of instruction.
They need to hear these teachers who have sat before us
Yes.
and said, I have to sign up 4
Yes.
weeks in advance to get the cart that I need, and sometimes I need it for the lesson the next day. So I don't want them envision these carts sitting in a
That's right.
closet somewhere and being used once or twice a month.
Absolutely.
The fact we've got people signing up to
Yes.
try to get one right now, to me, is a critical piece.
I agree with you 100%. And that is exactly what the students are saying, because I did ask, how do you interact with each other to help each other understand the various software? What do you use to do a specific project? And the answer was, we don't have time to do that, because we don't get the iPads or the, of course, laptops on a daily basis. Teachers are saying the same thing. So we must have equal access and opportunity for the students and the teachers to be able to infuse this in their lessons on a daily basis.
Dr. Handy, I thought where you said daily use to test, that was very, very clearly put out last year by the 2 English teachers
Yes.
from Y High. And I think that was very important, because they explained how they had to do it during the year on paper, but yet when it came time for testing,
Yes.
they could not relate the software
It's totally different.
to the testing.
That's correct.
Therefore, they said they wish they could have done it by hand, and that they would understand. But when it came time to use it for the testing, they simply...
And that is so important from pre-kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, because our pre-kindergarten students also take assessments online as well. And if they don't have the access and opportunity to even understand how to use the keyboard and how to use the various tools, then when it comes time for testing, that is online, they will be at a loss. So the daily instruction using it is so important.
Perhaps a little testimony from those two English teachers to explain how that has been helpful in their class would show some real life, right then, how this did help.
Absolutely. Well, we are definitely anticipating teachers, of course, hopefully students as well, to be at the next, of course, series of public hearings for the budget to explain and to advocate for why we need technology and other items as well.
Mr. Ford, I have a quick question.
Sure.
And the county council, when they go through their budget, do they have an equivalent of proposed one-time funding projects within their budget? What is their equivalent to what we are doing here?
They will use what they've referred to as PAYGO funds or fund balance in order to fund one-time capital things versus selling bonds to fund those capital items. And so what we're asking for them to consider, as they have done in years past, and as Mr. Willie articulated, they have utilized PAYGO funds or fund balance to fund one-time type expenditures, non-recurring in nature, that will not impact their maintenance of effort requirement.
Is their PAYGO increasing this year, or does it increase every year?
That depends upon their budget, and I haven't seen a release of what they're recommending at this point.
I mean, if their PAYGO projects are increasing and they are approving it, then this is our PAYGO funds, and if the funds are available, then there's really no reason why.
That's correct. This would be our PAYGO request. That's correct.
Well, the reason why is if they don't see it as a priority compared to other things, and that falls on us to try to help them see that. And
that's correct.
Is it typical for, and I guess it would make sense, the one-time requests exceed what we're asking for and proposed new under the maintenance of effort? It's like 2.8 million versus 2,048,000.
Right.
Just because I don't know.
No, it is because the needs are so vast. The capital alone, the Exhibit E on the next page.
Yeah, that's almost $2 million bucks. Right?
We have pared that down. To be honest with you, to try to get it under $2 million, I know that was Dr. Townsend's goal.
So we could make this even
more.
My
goodness! Oh my goodness! The technology also we've pared down.
That's what I gathered. Okay.
Yes.
And you're going to prioritize that Exhibit E also?
Exhibit D will be in priority order as well. We did this here so that the board could see the quote subdivisions, i.e., laptop carts and interactive whiteboards in terms of the total. So at this point, there's $463,000 just in laptop carts there through line 9 there, you can see.
And I guess, Bruce, and just my comment would be, as I prioritize these, for me, I have to look at how many students can be potentially affected by this item, because the items that affect the most students, in my simple way of thinking, are the ones that probably need the greatest priority. And that doesn't mean I want to see the smaller schools lose out, but the bottom line is, if you're talking about dollars that will impact the most, you almost have to look at it that way.
I think there's just a major flaw in this budgeting process and funding for technology. I mean, it's a ramp up. It's hard to come up with the funds to make them available for technology. And I think once we have an overall technology plan and we go to the county council and say, here's our plan, and over the next X number of years, this is what we expect to do, and this is totally outside our regular budgeting process. So what we're going to be looking for from the county is this one-time funding. I talked to Worcester County, Lou Taylor, to find out, what they're doing for their technology, and it's a 4-year rollout, and they're going with the one-to-one approach for their students, and this is something their county has agreed to, so that they realize they can't do it within the normal funding for the total school budget. It's outside of it to ramp up to get up to this technology. And we're going to have to do the same thing and talk to the county council and the county executive and say this is just outside the normal funding process. And if you want our students to be able to use the technology in the future, we've got to do this. And if you don't do it this year, this $819,000, we have no other way of coming up with funding for it. We cannot go into our budget and cut items to make room for $819,000, and to let them know more is coming, that we expect to have a technology plan, and we're going to be going to them and asking them for a commitment such as a 4-year rollout. When I went to school, technology was not even in the vocabulary. I mean, you wanted new chalkboards or new chalk. The biggest technological change when I was a kid was going from white chalk to yellow and red chalk. So it's a big difference. The amount of the cost is enormous. And let's remember, it's a ramp up. We're trying to get up to a technological level to meet the needs of our students, but to meet the needs of proposed workforces and for the universities that our students will be attending.
That's our plan, Mr. Ollinger. That's what we're going to be putting together.
I have a question on that plan, and again, this is a practice question. All of this equipment that we're asking for at one time, I'm sure, and I think I've seen it scattered throughout the budget, there is a plan for replacement of old equipment and adding a certain amount each year. I remember seeing something on security cameras at one time where we replaced some, and then some aging ones, and then at the beginning of the year we added X number each year.
That is correct, sir. Several years ago, we decided to extend the life of a laptop or a desktop PC to 5 years. That is about the sweet spot compared to other counties in the state. Some counties have up to 7- and 9-year-old PCs, which I don't know how they can have a quality instructional experience running a 9-year-old PC. Some counties are every 4 years. Talbot has theirs on a special lease program. They're an Apple-only organization. So we feel 5 is manageable. We have an e-cycling program that after 5 years, we decommission the PCs, and then an e-cycler comes in and takes those away and writes us a check. So we put that money back into the general fund to offset parts and replacement, et cetera. Some of our other products, technology-wise, are significantly older. We have, you see a line item in there for the projector replacements, the interactive projector replacements. We have some interactive systems out there that are 9 and 10 years old, and we are continually buying parts for those and or replacing the units. So depending on the technology, it has a different lifespan, but we are in a very rigid cycle of replacement. To your point, Mr. Ollinger, we have not significantly increased our fleet since I've been here. So these are incremental purchases to get us where we need to go. And as part of our presentation, we'll share with you some of the numbers we did early on several years ago to look at equipping every 9th grader with a laptop. And that is a sizable expenditure. And to do that every year is a recurring cost that almost becomes the cost of doing business. So we'll be happy to present those numbers as they come together. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on Exhibit D? All right, let's move to Exhibit E. These are the proposed one-time funding requests for capital needs, and these requests are in priority order.
I guess, Bruce, item 9, which talks about the portable classrooms to address capacity, if this is not funded, then what does that say that we do the coming year, that we still utilize what portables we have and that we will be crowded? Maybe, Donna, is that your question?
Yes,
All,
well, I mean,
all
again,
of them,
in
all of them are
in
your
terms
questions eventually.
Sit outside.
Yes, I mean, this was a big funding item that we're very hopeful would be funded through the one-time funding requests, but it was something that was talked about at length in our budget discussions with staff, and we determined that it was something that would not, in order to do the other kinds of things that we've been talking about doing, this was one of the things that we moved to the one-time funding.
Is one of these for Prince Street? Do you know?
Liesl, can you speak to that as far as where those 4 portables were?
There were 18 total portables requested through principal budget requests this year. They have not been prioritized at this point in time.
Okay.
I'm just cross-checking
Okay.
Prince Street ads. Yes, Prince Street's on the list.
It's one of these 4?
It's one of the 18.
It's one of the 18.
But, so you're only going to ask for 4 out of 18.
Correct.
But do you have a home for the 4 portables? I mean, the highest
We
priority?
would have to work with instruction to prioritize where they would like those portables
The other
placed.
thing that Liesl has reminded us of over and over again that's now drilled in my head is that because we put these 4 portables here in our budget, these would not be available for occupancy until January
That's correct.
of the following year.
Right.
So they wouldn't be available for the beginning of this next school year.
Now, are these new portables, or are we relocating those already in inventory?
These portables would be new purchases.
Do we maintain a stock in inventory of portables?
As far as replacement or spares?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And that's good to know. Yeah.
So the 4 would have to go where the
Greatest need.
greatest needs are, where the overcapacity is the largest. You know, that's got to dictate what we do with them, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay.
But you would be able to show the county council this is what we need because of capacity, but of these 18, we are right now currently asking for these 4 because this, that, and the other.
I would just caution long-term the use of portables. We have portables that, quite frankly, probably need to be replaced within the next few years. So from a facilities perspective, we're always hesitant to keep adding to the portable list because we're using them for a significantly long amount of
To go
time.
back to Dr. Hanlon's comment earlier, the portable is a Band-Aid approach and doesn't solve the problem, and portables do wear out, and we use them longer than they were ever intended to
Correct.
be used.
We got some 25 years old.
We've had a discussion that this school will be at capacity when it's completed. So when we talk about portables, we're also talking about having some portables or a portable at a school a new school that's at capacity. So when we go to the county council and when we go to county council and others, we have to stress that point because we built a school, we're building a school, replacing a school, and it's going to be at capacity. And I don't think there's an opportunity there will be an opportunity at that point for expansion. Am I correct?
West Salisbury will actually open with approximately 45 to 50 seats of capacity, depending on what happens with the Y3 program moving forward. Although the core design of the new building was not done to include a future addition was designated, but the core MEP systems, as we've done in the past, have not been oversized to accommodate that addition, but an addition has been planned for at an overall feasibility level.
And it will cost us more to do that
Right.
when that time comes. And if we had done it while we were, which is what we pleaded for but
Exactly.
did not get.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Exhibit E?
Yeah, why is Parkside vestibule not as important as the Y-High vestibule? Just out of curiosity. They're both safety. Oh, sorry, Lisa.
That's okay. I'm getting my steps in today. Part of the pieces of the puzzle that you don't necessarily see in this list is our staffing and available resources to actually implement the one-time funding, because they really need to be done within a fiscal year. So we're already addressing certain, what I'll say are some refresh projects at Y High this particular summer. So that's one of the reasons Y High is ranked higher than Parkside. Parkside could be done a little bit further down the road, maybe in conjunction with the HVAC project. So that's more of a timing and resource issue.
Okay, it was just an obvious question to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me, Bruce, as we look at exhibits F, both sides, how many requests we've had that are listed as unfunded requests in the budget. Things people said we needed, but we have said we just won't have funds to do it with. To me, that's a telling piece of how much has been cut from our budget and reduced from our budget based upon initial requests.
That's a good observation, sir, because remember, this is a give and take process. There's not a whole lot of giving, but there's a whole lot of taking in terms of what the requests are and what available resources there are to meet those requests. And so you have, as we mentioned earlier, almost $8 million worth of requests that have come in from the schools and from the various budget managers that will not make it in this first submission should the board approve the superintendent's recommendation to put forward for adoption on the March 14th board meeting.
Bruce, on item 6, it says a lot right there. What exactly does it mean? When a council reads that, they're not going to know what that is.
Are we back on which exhibit?
I'm on Exhibit E.
Exhibit E, line 6 says access control expansion phase 1 to enhance safety and security. The various schools, or all of our schools, currently have what are referred to as FOB access, and that is a safety and security issue. And we'll do our best to try to dress that up in terms of a better explanation. So that's what we're trying to say there. Access control, meaning giving our schools some more entrances and exits with the fob security. So Lisa will help.
We've had multiple requests from various principals. What happens over time is 3 fiscal years ago, perhaps, we were given one-time funding to basically put S2 at a minimum of 2 doors per school. Clearly, some schools have the need for potentially more S2 doors because of portables or some other reasoning. We had looked at what if we potentially added 2 additional S2 doors across the entire jurisdiction. This is just like a third of that. So we would go through and prioritize by building based upon the requests and what access control issues they had. So this is the fob control pieces.
And the S2 door is what type of door?
It's the fob entrance reader, similar to what you see out here. Okay.
Anything else on Exhibit F? Okay, Dr. Hanlon, you wanted to expand on an item?
Can I ask one question on Exhibit S? Does the council actually know what's on Exhibit F, like dollar-wise?
They will get the complete listing.
Okay. I mean, 'cause that's
They
fair.
get a copy of the same thing we have
That's
in
exactly
terms
correct.
of what's been
Okay.
requested.
So they can figure out how much agony went into this.
How long
They'll
in
get
advance
it, but
do
we're
they
not
get it?
sure they pay attention to it. We need to call their attention to it.
That's my
Review
next
it.
point, honestly.
How long in advance do they get this? I mean, we're just not going to dump this on one day and expect them to.
They will get the budget will be delivered to them on March the 15th.
And it has to be approved by.
They will not approve their budget till May the 31st or somewhere in that area. And as has been the case in years past, and I have no reason to believe that it will not be, the Board of Ed will have an opportunity to sit before the county council and make a presentation of their approved budget, a proposed budget. That's correct.
Will you do it all at one time or over a period of different sections over a period of those 2 months?
In the past, they've had one work session specifically dedicated to the Board of Education. Typically, it lasts about 2 hours.
That's a lot to go over.
And we also go over it with the county executive. We have a meeting with them, go over the budget with the county executive and Wayne, and then we go over it with the county council.
And I am sensitive to them feeling like we've overdone it when we do this, but I really think having a couple teachers come for that presentation to talk about the one-time funding request in terms of laptops needed and having to sign up, as I spoke of a few minutes ago. You know, we can have too many come in, and it's like we kind of overwhelmed them with. But I think items like that, sometimes they need to hear from the people in the field who are struggling with the issue instructionally.
I believe Dr. Hanlon has every intention to encourage our folks.
That's
Remember, the work sessions I was talking about are specific work sessions, but there are the public hearings. The county executive will have one in April, early April, and the county council will have one in either late April or early May. So there will be 2 opportunities for us to publicly get our message about the importance of these requests.
I've suggested to Dr. Hanlon that maybe we could put on a demonstration for the county executive and for the county council to show them a smart board and to show them a cart with these PCs and where they're actually in use. I think by seeing that, they get a better comprehension of it. You can talk about it, but there's nothing like seeing it. I know on tours that I've had of the schools, you know, I've never seen a smart board. So, you know, seeing it in action has an impact, and as do the carts. So I think we should try and get them, you know, schedule a demonstration at a real school.
I think it's an excellent idea.
I don't want to try to overkill it, but do we ever get our student reps there to also speak? Do we ever have students speak?
Public hearings, I know Dr. Hanlon's interested in doing that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I knew you'd be ahead of me on that.
Try to stay ahead of you.
Student representative.
The young man.
Yeah.
Patrick.
Patrick.
So one minor adjustment to the budget that has taken place since this went to print at the end of last week. If you will, and I've passed that out to you. I think you should have a one-pager in front of you that just came your way. Hopefully. Okay. Yep. So we have talked about the MAP assessment. That's the measure of academic progress that we were looking at simultaneously to this budget development, and we had placed a placeholder in line 5 for $130,000. We are not ready to move forward with that at this point. So what you see before you are adjustments to the budget based upon that decision that continues to allow for a balanced budget. What we'd like to do is do a small pilot for the measure of academic progress. We've talked about maybe a couple of grade levels in a specific school. We haven't zeroed in on that yet, but that's what you see. What you see on the left side, obviously, is the reduction of $130,000. What you see on the right side is a combination of things. The pilot for the measure of academic progress. What was eliminated from the budget was line 47. That's conversion kits for the benchmark assessment system. We continue to need those, so that has been put back in the budget. And then the balance of the difference between those two items and the $130,000, we have added to lines that are in existence in the budget. Line 104, which right now reads transportation associated with elementary alternative programs. I've added to that line item in order to allow for specifically two things, but perhaps others as they may come about with programmatic changes. One is the summer school that we've talked about, and two, with the increased number of students that we're hoping for in our magnet program, we're anticipating additional transportation needs in that area. And then finally, adding another $10,000 to line 123, that had been significantly reduced. That's the miscellaneous school building projects that come about during the school year. We've added that remaining $10,000 back into that line item, which is line 123. So we still have a balanced budget. Just wanted you to see this.
So if you flip back to Exhibit C, we'll articulate for you exactly how that is happening. Exhibit C, under Other Instructional Costs, the line item under Other Instructional Costs, 5, Measure of Academic Progress, 130. That line will be reduced to $20,000. We will add from the unfunded request in Exhibit F, old line 47 will now be moved up into new requests for $81,355. And then line items 104, which is currently in the new request, under student transportation services on the next page. Line 104, which is currently $11,005, will be increased by $18,645. And then line item 123 on the next page of Exhibit C, the last page of Exhibit C, under capital outlay, line 123, currently $36,202, will be increased by $10,000. That is our presentation for this morning. We stand ready to answer any questions the board may have.
Yeah, I would just like to say this is my first budget process, and yesterday banks were closed. I had this spread on my kitchen table, and I thought, I got all day to look at this. You guys been living with this for months and deciding what goes and what doesn't go. I found a lot of stuff we could have kept in there that we can't afford. I mean, it's amazing what all of you did. So I learned a great deal from my first process, and you guys do a wonderful job.
right.
Sure do.
Any other questions? Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Bruce. Well done.
Thank you.
So we'll bring this budget to you on for your approval on the March board meeting. Right.
March 4th.
So this ends the work session, and we're going to go into closed session. Anybody want to take a break here? I mean, some people are going to
Staff
be
is
leaving.
excused
All right.
for the closed session.
Why don't we get back here at 10 after 9? 5-minute break. Is that okay?
Mhm.
All right.